Thank you. Senator West?
I need a resource witness up.
Which would you like?
Whoever is responsible for the regulation of abortion facilities in the state of Texas.
Dr. Becker? Dr. Becker here. Excuse me, Ellen Cooper might come up as well. Come on up. And please identify yourself for the record.
I'm Ellen Cooper with the Department of State Health Services.
Senator West?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Cooper, in terms of promulgation of rules, you are, after the legislature passes a law that your agency is responsible, assume it's your agency, is responsible for promulgation of rules, and then you go through a process.
Correct.
Can you kind of just tell us in summary what that process is? Give me 30 seconds.
Generally, once there's a new statute, we start a process where we, in spite of the fact that it's statutory, we do go through a stakeholder process where we have stakeholders give us input into our draft language that we'll put together related to the new legislation. And subsequently, once we have that draft, we go through our Department of State Health Services Council for their recommendation for approval to have it posted on the Texas Register and so forth. But there's a great deal of input in terms of various staff persons within regulatory in terms of how that might be implemented with language that might be in addition to statutory language.
And then you send it out for public comment?
Correct. It goes on the Texas Register for public comment, and subsequently it may be that some changes may be made, and then it is reposted after it's approved by the Executive Commissioner of the Health and Human Services Commission.
How often do you revisit the regulations that are promulgated?
It really varies. Often there are statutory changes or requirements that may come into place that we...
Assuming no statutory changes?
It depends on the rule set because we regulate many health facility types. Ideally, it's every 4 years or so. Unfortunately, because of staffing issues and other priorities that have come up, including federal requirements that we've had to go ahead and put into rule, that schedule has been delayed.
And when you put into effect a rule, what is the intent of putting that rule in? Is it to protect their health and safety?
Exactly. All of our rules are intended as minimum standards for each of the healthcare facility type with the fundamental purpose of the health and safety of all Texans and all potential patients as well as staff in these facilities.
Let me draw your attention then to the abortion facilities. I think it's like 25 TAC 139.
Yes.
Okay. Did you go through that process in adopting the regulations, the rules and regulations for abortion facilities, licensed abortion facilities in the state of Texas?
Yes.
Okay. Did you invite stakeholders from all sides of the issue?
That's correct. And there have been elements that have been amended, such as from the last legislative session where we amended the rules, and we always involve stakeholder comment.
Okay, but everyone who had, you didn't prejudice it one way or the other. You got the whole state of Texas, whoever wanted to be involved in that process, you allowed them to be involved in the process. That's
correct. We have stakeholder meetings as well as we welcome any sort of submission of suggestions, comments, opposition, and so forth.
And then you take into consideration all of the input, and then make a recommendation to the council.
That's correct.
Okay, and then the council has a similar discussion, open meeting, allow input in.
Right. There's time allotted for public comment at each Department of State Health Services council meeting.
Did you participate in the abortion facility rules and regulations?
I have in the amendments and the new rules that have come into place in the last several years.
Now, let me ask, did the issue of having the same standards as ASC ever come up during this process?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
You're not saying that it didn't, you're just not aware of it?
In the time that I've been with the department, in approximately 4 years, I've not known of any sort of suggestion of that.
When were these rules first put in place? Do you recall?
I don't trust my memory right now.
But it was before you were involved in the process?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Is there any record or anything that would show us whether or not some of the same provisions that are currently being recommended, i.e. the ASC, were considered during the respective process for licensed abortion facilities?
I can say in general that because there are comparable issues in a variety of healthcare facilities, hospitals, ASCs, abortion facilities, issues around infection control and quality assurance and so forth, there are some comparable regulations that are all taken into account that are common to a lot of these types.
The point I'm getting to here is if indeed the agency, and I'm not asking you to say one way there because I don't want to get you involved in a political issue, the regulations that have been promulgated, and I shouldn't say promulgated, adopted by your agency, there to make certain that the health and welfare of those that use these services are not compromised. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And so if indeed you thought that the current regulations, you being the agency,
right,
would negatively impact as a result of cases, as a result of incidents in the state of Texas, would those rules have to be revisited?
Yes, sir, they would.
Have those rules been revisited?
They have, several times they have been amended in the last few years.
Has it been as a result of some incident that occurred at a licensed abortion facility?
No, sir, it has not.
How many incidents have occurred at the licensed abortion facilities in the state of Texas?
We don't have the exact data to indicate an exact number of incidents.
But if there was a significant number, you would know that, wouldn't you?
I would say we're always aware if there were ever to be a death, there are several mechanisms for reporting, including immediate reporting to the department.
So based
maternal
on
death.
Based on what the department has done as of today, at least, you believe that the department is of the belief that there's an adequate regulation infrastructure in place in order to maintain the health and well-being of women in the state of Texas as it relates to the abortion facilities?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Thank you.
Madam Chair. Senator Zaffirini, before I recognize you, I want to acknowledge that Senator Campbell has joined us. She's not a member of the committee, but we welcome our non-committee members. And I saw Senator Eltife, and now I don't. So thank you for joining us. Senator Zaffirini.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. When I asked about resource witnesses earlier, and their availability earlier, there was specifically a representative from your agency that I wanted to ask some questions to, so thank you for being with us. A few follow-up questions to Senator West. First of all, how do the regulations, the current regulations for each facility that your agency regulates, ensure patient safety? Are there some generic standards?
We regulate such a wide array of facility types, everything from substance abuse treatment facilities, birthing centers, and so forth and so on. And so you really can't compare them per se. Each one is so unique. But again, when it comes to any sort of procedures, surgeries, those sorts of things, there are a lot of commonalities that would exist in a multitude of facility types.
So basically, when you deal with licensed abortion facilities and ambulatory surgical centers, you have the requirements that are listed on this particular handout, correct?
I haven't seen that handout, but there are a lot of comparable requirements.
You were here for the testimony of Ms. Miller?
Yes, I was.
Is there anything she said in response to my questions that you disagree with?
I can't say that I would, but I may not have heard every word. So.
But generally you agree with what her...
Yes, generally I do.
Good. Based on your inspections of abortion clinics, are there any findings that would indicate that there is a problem with the safety of the health care delivered in those particular facilities?
As with all of our facilities, we go in and we investigate should there ever be a report of a complaint or a concern. We go in annually at a minimum into abortion facilities to conduct inspections routinely. It's common for basically every facility type when they have their annual surveys or inspections or investigations, there may be some issues that are found that it wouldn't be unexpected to find some things. So it's kind of a difficult question to answer. Generally speaking, compared with the other facility types, I have not been aware of any particular concerns. I can say that.
So you said that you inspect the abortion clinics annually?
That's correct.
What about ambulatory surgical centers?
They try to get out there every 3 years. It's not necessarily every 3 years. It can be sometimes as much as up to 6 years, just because of the volume and staff and the requirements.
So licensed abortion facilities are inspected by your agency every year.
Yes.
But ambulatory surgical centers are inspected by your agency every 3 or perhaps as many as 6 years?
Correct.
I see. That's very interesting. Are the inspections to abortion facilities announced or unannounced?
They're unannounced.
So they can't prepare for you?
No, they can't.
Are abortion clinics the only facilities regulated by your agency that receive such frequent inspections?
We actually go to 2 other facility types. One, currently the freestanding emergency centers are annually at this time, as well as 1 other special care facilities are visited annually.
So they're held to a very high standard, at least as far as inspections go.
Correct.
Now, your website indicates that 1 abortion clinic was cited for a deficiency in the last year. What was that deficiency, and how did you ensure that it was corrected?
Well, I do need to clarify that deficiencies are commonly cited during routine inspections and investigations. So what you see on that website are elevated enforcement actions where there's been a final enforcement action that's occurred with a facility as a result of deficiencies or a deficiency that rose to a higher level, if that makes sense.
It does, but what was the deficiency and how was it corrected?
I believe the deficiency was related to incorrect reporting. I don't know the specifics because that relies on my memory too much. I would hate to say anything incorrectly.
All right. Were there any deficiencies reported for ambulatory surgical centers during the same period?
Yes. What you find on our website is elevated enforcement actions that have occurred with the different facility types over a period of 1 year. So from May 2012 to May 2013, there are, I believe, 6 for ambulatory surgical centers currently posted as far as elevated enforcement.
So you have had fewer issues then with abortion clinics than you have with ambulatory surgical centers, at least according to your website.
I don't know. You can't necessarily compare that because there are a different number of abortion facilities versus ambulatory surgical centers. So, there's 421 ASCs, and there's currently, as of today, 36 abortion facilities.
So would you say that the ASCs are safer than the abortion clinics?
No, I can't say that. I can't say one way or the other.
So if you can't say that the ASCs are safer than the abortion clinics, then could you say that by meeting the requirements of the ASCs, the abortion facilities would be made safer?
I wouldn't be able to say that, no.
You wouldn't be able to, or you don't want to?
Again, it's kind of, in a lot of ways, and particularly for the department, it's apples and oranges. And so it's really difficult to assess that without it being a general, I don't want to say opinion, but it would be more of an opinion.
Now, are all abortions after 16 weeks required to be performed at an ASC?
Yes, or a hospital.
Or a hospital. And do those ASCs perform both medical and surgical abortions?
Actually, I believe that the ASCs are only performing surgical abortions. Medical abortions are generally in the abortion facilities.
So then the abortion facilities perform abortions only before the 16 weeks?
Yes, correct.
I see. Are there any differences in complications reported for the same procedures performed at an abortion clinic compared to those at an ASC?
I don't have that information.
What is your education level?
Mine?
Yes.
I have a bachelor's in psychology, a master's in social work, and a master's in nursing.
A master's in nursing?
Mm-hmm.
Good. So then you can answer my questions. To your knowledge, is there any health-related reason to require medical abortions to be performed in an ASC?
I can say that it's medication administration, so there's no surgical procedure involved. You wouldn't need an operating room.
Do surgical abortions require an incision?
No, they do not.
If not, is there any health-related reason to require surgical abortions to be performed at an ASC?
I would really want to defer that to a physician who performs the actual procedures as opposed to myself.
Well, in your capacity as a registered nurse with a master's degree and a representative of the Department of Health Services, do you believe that a patient would be safer receiving a surgical abortion at an ASC versus an abortion facility?
There's no reason for me to think that one is safer than the other.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.